welcome to the
Hey,
Banks and Black channel. Another episode of Listen Up. Me, Ben Banks, James Black.
How you doing?
Delighted to be joined by Phil Bridges today. Phil, do you explain a wee bit about yourself and you and James's connection?
Phil, like you just said, born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Me and James, how James and I know each other is because of my local club, Chicago Fire. And I will forever find it interesting how he ultimately stumbled into one of the most dysfunctional American sides of all time.
Oh
But
yes. One big ass dumpster fire.
it's such a big dumpster fire, but yeah, it ended up following them. We ended up interacting a few times, and it's just gone off from there. And I'm glad to have gotten to know you, seen your work, and so it's been an honor and pleasure. And you know, I mean, it's just a lot right now. I'm sorry.
No, it's I can completely understand. So just to kind of throw my 2 cents in, yeah. So yeah, I got to know Phil through Chicago Fire, which, as much as I would love to say that's why we're here in a podcast talking. Sadly, it's not. It's the incredible scenes that we've all watched on TV and in the news and on social media, and in people like Phil's case in real life. It's what's going on round about him. So it's the horrific murder of George Floyd last week, which was the latest in an incredible number of black men and black women who've been murdered at the hands of police, and it's created a response now that's just incredible. And basically, we've got Phil on here just to tell his story and just to give him a bit of a platform so people can kind of get a real glimpse into what racism and what everything that's going on is about.
I think it's very hard for us in the UK to comprehend what it is that's going on, and I think the thing that, for me, obviously being quite young still, I've never seen anything like sort of the uprising you've seen, not just in America now, but globally. Like here where we are, just sort of outside Glasgow, there's going to be protests off the back of this. There's been stuff in London, all over the world. It seems this one in particular seems to have really struck a chord with everybody globally.
Yeah, I think this was a long time coming, to be honest. And I would even go as far as to argue that the seeds for this was planted during the riots of Ferguson. Uh, uh, when those riots were happening over another case of police brutality, police killing an unarmed African American, the levels of rioting that you saw in Ferguson was something that people hadn't seen since in any level since, I'd argue, the Rodney King riot. Mm-hmm. But then when this happened recently with Arbery, with Breonna Taylor in Louisville, and now with George Floyd, it's just been so little time between those. It just really makes you think, like, it's crazy. It's extremely crazy to think this has been happening at the rate it's been, and now people have lost their sense of chill. They're tired, they're pissed, they're livid. They don't feel like they've been heard, and this is and the riots and the protesting, that's the only way they're going to be heard. And the truth is that it's had an effect. I mean, if we talk about what has happened from the George Floyd case, originally it uh, took them quite a few days just to arrest the officer who had the knee on his neck. It took them a few days to do that, but they gave him a very light charge, how you would say, a very light charge, like tap on the tap on the hand, to be very honest. And then from there, you had the protests happening, you had the rioting happening, in all the in most of the major cities in the U.S. And so when you had that happening, you see the result of that. Ultimately, just these past few days, they finally arrested the other three officers that were involved in the case, and they upgraded all the charges. So now it's way more serious charges being pressed on all of them, and the uh, chance that they will be uh, punished more severely has been escalated. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's one thing to make the arrest, it's one thing to make the charge. It's a totally different thing to actually get justice.
I mean,
So that's where we are right now.
I mean, you have a look at the King trials and how those worked out. As you say, absolutely, it's one thing to make an arrest, it's one thing to get it to court. It's a whole different thing to see these people rightfully convicted, and that's still the step that we're waiting to see happen.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, and one of the most common things that you see when it comes to cases like these is that often in the media you'll see people try to go out of their way to discredit the victim. You know, first it was, well, he was giving fake money. You know, they accused him of being a counterfeiter. Now it's the fact that they said he had COVID-19. So now they're using that as the uh, to try to discredit the idea that the officer actually murdered him. So it's a very common thing. It's happened so many times. It's like clockwork. You weren't really shocked that it happened. You were just waiting for how soon they would start making the excuses. So uh, it's quite amazing what's been happening. I think the bit of the shock for me is how globally, you know, not just within the United States, but how people across the world have really been tuned in to what's been going on and joined in the protest. So that I think is some quite something I've never experienced in my life.
The one thing I was wondering is this isn't just a problem that sprang up overnight. This has been going on for years and years now. So why is it this particular case has struck a chord with so many? Because there's been people before, and sadly, I mean, there's probably going to be people after as well. So from me, from where I sit, is I wonder why is everybody connected with this particular circumstance?
So one of the two of the three recent cases, uh, Arbery, and then George Floyd, those deaths were on video. Those were on video. The Arbery case, they waited months before releasing the footage, but the George Floyd, it was so fresh. You had witnesses recording the death as it happened. And so when it's right there, when you see it happening in real time, and you're literally watching a man lose his life, the life slowly slipping out of his body. It just, it really, it really hits a nerve. It really hits a nerve. And for a lot of people, it was like, okay, you know what? No, no, it's happening again. It's happening again. It's happening again. And to think that we're gonna just sit by and be all calm and be all kumbaya this time around, that's just not gonna be the case. Um, so that's really the triggering point, was the fact that it was on video. I mean, here's the thing that's been said a lot, and it's very true. Police killing innocent people has been happening for decades, for centuries. It's been happening. The only difference now is that people are recording. Just imagine how many of these cases have not been recorded, how many went under the radar, how many have been able to be brushed away compared to the ones that have actually been exposed. It's very, very, very damning.
I mean, when these happen, how, how how do you feel when these things happen? Obviously, the obvious one would be that you're angry. But I mean, this is one that I kind of sent you yesterday, was that, does it become a sense of frustration where it's just, shit, it's happened again? Or, you know, it can't be surprise, if you know what I mean. You can't be like, oh, look, a white cop killed a black man. We've not seen that happen before. Do you kind of just get the point where shit, it keeps happening and it keeps happening and it keeps happening, and it becomes almost like resignation?
I mean, it for me personally, it just become it does hurt. It hurts. It hurts. It always hurts, and it's just not hurting because it's happening. It's how it's happening. In the case of Breonna Taylor, her death was due to a policy called a no-knock warrant, where they essentially busted in. And here's the kicker: they didn't have the right information. So when they busted in, her boyfriend who was staying with her, he shot at the police because he thought someone was invading their home. So he shot at them, they shot back, and she got caught up in the mixed fire and was shot 8 times. So the craziest part about that is she dies and he gets arrested by the police for shooting, even though he was defending himself. He had every reason to believe he was defending himself. Her death uh, is another case of just, it happens and they try to brush over it as quickly as they can. And it's saddening and it's maddening and it's hurtful that lives of Black Americans can be just, I don't know how to rightly say it, just brushed aside like that. You know, when it gets to that point, you really have to just take a step back and reevaluate where you are mentally. And it really puts into perspective all these deaths. You know, that could be me. That could be me. Who knows? I've been blessed enough where it hasn't been me. So I'll never take it for granted. I'll always be uh, feeling that, you know,
I mean, I know
at least,
one of the tweets that I'd seen was from, I think maybe you've maybe seen me mention it, was, you know, Hurricane Helen's a wrestler. He tweeted how, as a white man, when he's pulled over by the cops, he's scared he'll get a ticket. When a black man's pulled over, he's scared that he might get killed. And that's the difference. And I think that's what people, I mean, especially for me, I simply, I can't get my head around the idea that just because I've got darker skin than everybody else, that I know I'm not going to get a ticket, I'm going to get choked out until I die. Like that's, if it was a country with ending with Stan, would have the army in there trying to sort that shit out and give them democracy.
It's so odd, I think, because like in the UK, for example, it's obviously it's up everywhere, but you can't imagine it. You can't imagine the scale that you're seeing it across the water. And I think that's what's shocked me, is that it has laid all the problems out bare, and it just seems, I think people who perhaps aren't as well educated on that subject are now starting to see sort of how far back this goes.
When was the first time that you directly experienced racism?
Let's see. We could go. We could go to when I was a kid. I mean, I remember as a kid, just going on field trips with my elementary school, and us going to the museum, and for us, certain, being able to go to the museum, it was pretty exciting for us, and so we're just a bunch of excited giddy kids, just going through, trying to see what we can see, and all of a sudden you have these people who look down upon you, essentially. And I think one of the main times we were just going to get food. We were going to get food, and it was essentially a double fountain machine. It had the same type of drinks, but on two different sides. So we just look at it and see like, oh, well, there's another side to it. So let's just go to that side. And all of a sudden you just hear this lady, all these damn black kids cutting us. And it's like, I think people see racism as, having to be this overtly and having to be specific type of thing. And it's not. Racism can be as subtle as you like, as subtle as you like. That lady literally, it wasn't, oh, it's just these kids, it's these black kids. So it's like, and as a child, you just sit there and like, I don't get it, what's going on. But the older you get, the more you understand.
Yeah, I sort of brought this up yesterday when we were recording as well, James, is that it's almost like in our school, at least in my school anyway, I didn't think like any of the children were racists. They didn't hate black people, but as you say, it would just be like, the black guy in our class and all that. It was really subtle, like you say.
Yeah, it was that ingrained sort of just this is how everyone around me is. So
I think the big one in the UK is obviously the Chinese and food, or like convenience stores, like a Chinese, like it's called Chinky, for example. I'm going to Chinky for a curry, and it's racist, and people go, oh well, how's it racist? I'm just going to the Chinese. The problem is that for some it is ingrained. They don't know that they're being racist.
One thing I should have after with everything that's on the TV news and what have you, everybody's talking about it. And one of the things my mum had told me about was that when my sister was a kid, so like we had kind of your usual kids TV type programs with like kind of 3 or 4 different people on it. One of them was Jamaican, I believe, Floella Benjamin. So she had the braided hair with beads, and my sister was trying to describe her, and it was the lady with beads in her hair. She didn't think, oh, it was the lady with the black skin. It was the hairstyle. Kids don't pick up on that necessarily until they get taught that, well, this guy's bad because he's African American, or that guy's bad because he's Latino, or here, as you say, it's Chinese, and everyone's kind of goes more towards former colonies with China or Asians and India and Pakistan and what have you. But yeah, in America, it seems so much more overt, but also there's just this kind of bubbling subcurrent where people are almost, it's a natural position to take without even knowing they take it.
Yeah, it's really it's you. It's like you said, they grew up with it, and it was okay around the people that they were, so they never saw anything wrong with it. And the one place where I saw that more apparently was in college. Like when you get to college or uni, how you call it, it essentially gets put on a bigger um, a, a bigger playing platform. You know, it's just dealing with having a lot of white guys just casually dropping the N word. What am I? And I'm like, whoa, what? Like, why would you call me that? What made you think it was okay to call me that? And he was like, oh no, you know, I didn't think it was a big deal, you know, because I used this ending instead of that ending. I'm like,
I have that argument.
and then you have the people, well, why is it that they put it in music? If they put it in music, then it should be fine. And it's like, no, you know, you can do better than, you know, just trying to use that cop out. Like, come on now. If the people that you consider close friends, you know, were to ultimately, you know, it's one of those things where it's like throughout college you're like you're trying to work so hard to break that with those who have that mindset, but to a certain extent, you know, at some point you were like, you know what, it's not my job. I can't continue to try to tell white people how to act. Ultimately, if you want to do better, if you want to be better, you have to want it for yourself.
For me,
You know, I can only do so much.
for me, it's education from when you're very young. Like in the UK, we have like homeroom classes in our high schools, and they give you like, lessons on like both figures and different weeks of the month. They've done mental health awareness week and stuff like that. But there never seems to be one about any racial behaviour. It's almost like it's it's almost like too heavy for. I think they perhaps think it's too heavy for children, but I think that sort of sentiment needs to be wiped away because it's in these children at that age where if they were growing up with the racial terms they're hearing, they get it wiped out at school because their teacher's saying them basically black and white, this is right, this is right, this is wrong. And I think that's what's needed sort of from an early age, really, because that's where it starts.
Yeah, I mean, if that was implemented, I mean, I I would want to imagine how things might have changed. Ultimately, I don't think racism would be gone. I think it's one of those situations where you just wouldn't have as many overt acts. I feel there would still be a certain amount of subtle racism going around, but you would have decreased the amount of overt acts um, by quite a bit. And you know, under the current regime, presidential regime, he kind of emboldened. He's pretty much emboldened them to try to do whatever they want to, and their mentality is, well, our president is fine with it, so we really don't care. But that's a whole different thing. Talking about the uh, elections coming up, that's just something I don't got enough energy to go and dive through all that crap.
Oh God, no! That we can come back to that one in a few months. I mean, looking at how just everything's gone over the last week or so, I mean, without kind of going into the political side of things, have you been surprised by the response on both sides? By, first of all, the people who, for want of a better word, have kind of shown themselves to be allies, and then some others who have maybe, or not maybe, but some who have kind of used certain hashtags and going, why are they doing this? Why are they protesting? Or, the all lives matter bullshit.
Honestly, I'm not shocked. Usually when situations like these happen, you have people who show their true faces. That's generally what's been happening for the longest. I think you just haven't had as major of a scale. Uh, this especially when it comes to the sports world, and I guess I'll connect it right back to the sports world. You had Alexander Katai. I think you saw what we posted about that.
Yes.
His wife made some very vile comments about Black Lives Matter and the protesters. I believe the translations was "kill the shit."
Yeah, I believe that's, yeah.
And so he makes. I'm sorry.
I was just, is this an LA Galaxy player? I'm not.
Yeah, Alex Katai's ex-Chicago Fire until what was maybe 12 months ago, was it? Left?
Yeah, he left in free agency when he signed with them.
Right. So it's his wife, basically.
His wife, she took to Instagram yesterday, and it was just utterly vile. Absolutely vile.
I think somebody with, like, obviously relations, very close relations to somebody who's obviously a public figure, if, for want of a better word, in America, would like to have some sort of awareness to A, shouldn't hold those views anyway, but B, not put them on a social platform for the world to see. But I mean, at least
the sports side of it's been huge. I mean, also we had Cap taking a knee, everything that came with that. NFL not effectively putting rules in, but near as damn it with US soccer then putting actual rules in. I mean, what do you think of them now essentially going, no, you were right all along and we back you? Does it feel like a bit of a slap in the face?
It's a smack in the face, spit in the face. It's basically a middle finger to Cap and basically him sacrificing his career. You having former NFL executives saying, well, yeah, we kind of blackballed him without really saying it. He should have been still playing. And it's like, really, when it comes to the NFL. With MLS, it's like, it's one way or the other. It's like, I don't know if MLS is just so confusing because you will have clubs that put out statements and you can just tell, there's nothing genuine. And then you'll have clubs who actually are about the business and put out well-meaning statements. Going back to the Katai situation and just speaking on athletes and how they react. You have the thing with his wife happen, and then he has to put out a whole statement essentially denouncing it, whether or not he actually disagrees with it, you're not sure of, but he has to make the statement to try to save face.
Well, this was like yesterday that I seen the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins posting stuff. Like, I seen one tweet and it was like, Ben and Jerry say ice cream is bad. It's like, for me, I think it was on the Blackout Tuesday type stuff. Like, it just seemed to me that less so like the normal Instagram accounts who would just put it up with like Black Lives Matter and they wouldn't really add anything of note. But for me, the bigger accounts that were doing that, people with actual platforms just putting these black squares, there's a reliance on them to be putting out valuable information, to go to these movements, to sign petitions, bail funds, and a lot of them, some did. Like, I know John Boyega is obviously one that's been in the news. He's been really vocal about it.
Yeah, I mean, hearing him go off, saying, "Look, I don't care if my career goes down the drain for it. just hearing that, and uh, you had Jordan Peele saying, "Don't worry, we got you." Right afterwards, you know, it's just it's just something amazing, to see how people are going one way or the other. When it came to the fire, and I posted about that, and my group Black Fires, who represents the African American fan in Chicago Fire, or we're the group trying to grow the game in the African American community. Um, we had a very interesting meeting uh, on Monday. Uh, we got an email at 2:35, essentially telling us, "Hey, we're gonna have a meeting with you guys to discuss what's going on." A week after the riot start, so not only was it last minute, but then uh, just throughout the duration of the meeting, it just felt like it was excuses on top of excuses the club were making as to why they hadn't made a statement or said anything trying to address what had happened. And one of the quotes that really had got me was, "We didn't want to come off as hollow. We didn't want to just say something that would be forgotten." And I think my thing is that if you really meant something, if you really wanted to do something, I guarantee you people can see through it. It doesn't take much to say that Black Lives Matter. Even if you thought that it would seem hollow, if you simply say, "Look, Black Lives Matter, and we're going to be working with our staff, our players, and our fans to work towards something where we can do better and be better," uh, that would have made a whole difference. That would have made a whole difference, but they didn't. We have the meeting, it falls flat, and then we have the whole situation where they were supposed to work with us on a statement. They didn't. They just put out a statement a day later, and so that's what really set everyone off. And then they say something about having a November 1st when they're going to roll out these new programs to address uh, community outreach in the African American community. And it's like, okay, I don't know what else to say. James, I'm not sure whether you saw what we were saying or not.
Yeah, I
But
did. Yeah. I mean, and I completely agree with that. My calendar is ringed for November 1st, so I can see what these programs are and whether it's just a load of hollow nonsense, because it does feel that way. The timing of it, the length of time that it took. I mean, we're not talking. I could almost understand it if we were talking some team in a small market who doesn't have a large African American support, doesn't play in a city that has a huge African American population. But to wait a week and then to say, "Well, we're going to do something in 6 months' time," like, guys, really, it's tone deaf, it's half-arsed, and it's not the first time. I remember the stuff that kicked off with Sector Latino and how that all had that kind of racial overtones to it. And again, I don't want to say or think that there are people in the front office that are racist or have grudges against races. I just think they let themselves be far too reactive to things rather than being proactive and taking those steps to engage with the various communities in
yeah,
Chicago.
that's what it is. I mean, I don't think any of them are racist. It's just like you said, they were way too reactive. They didn't take the initiative, and when you don't take the initiative, you put yourself behind the eight ball, and you'll struggle to catch up. You'll struggle to put yourself in a better position, and that's pretty much where the Fire are right now. But as for Black Fires, we're just gonna keep on doing what we we gotta do. We're gonna keep on pushing to do our best. As much as it sucks to see that the club is uh, struggling to keep up, we're gonna do our part regardless, whether it's with them or without them. We want to work. We want to feel like we can work with the club to make a better change for tomorrow. We want to, because I want to believe in this new ownership. But it's moments like these where you kind of have to worry and you kind of have to take a step back and wonder, well, are we about to go through this again?
Because for me, at least, it doesn't look like people are asking for the world. They're just asking for a bit of solidarity, wee bit of support, but to then basically just have nothing. You need something. You need to do something about it. Just sitting there idle doesn't help.
Old white dudes acting like old white dudes.
How is the ownership with Chicago? You're obviously more clued up in MLS than me, so spoke to me about this, James. Is there some sort of new ownership?
Yeah,
The badge and stuff has changed.
It went from the much hated Mr. Andrew Hauptman, who just he was some guy, to Joe Mansueto, who came in and everybody was very positive about his involvement, but with every action you're just a bit like, come on guys, you need to, there's a new badge and a rebrand, and whilst their involvement in that's a bit questionable, everything's just felt much like the same shit show it was before Uncle Joe. And things like this are like, oh, come on, guys.
They know they can do better. We know they can do better. It's time for them to take that next step. That's where we are right now.
How have you found the rest of the fire community in the last few days?
They've been extremely supportive. Extremely supportive. Like I really appreciate them standing for us. The messages of kindness, the check-ins. Just knowing that they really do have our backs when it comes down to it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes sometimes. Just knowing that, hey, we're with you through all of this, and we're not gonna be here for you just through this. We're gonna be here for you when this ends and going forward. And that's the feel good. That's a good feeling to have. To know that you have people who are allies with you like that. So that's extremely important to us, and that's been extremely important to me on a personal level. And even as I say what I say about the front office, I had people, I had a member reach out to me, just to see how I was, and it felt good knowing that, while the whole may not have reacted, at least there are people in there who do care, who do want to look out for us, and who are on top of it.
One thing I was always wondering is, just from the outside looking in, is how important is support from outside sort of the black community when obviously issues like this arise? Because something I've always sort of tried to understand a bit more. Don't know if you can give me a bit more insight.
It's extremely important. Like at the end of the day, a lot of people have to understand you have to stand up and say something. You can't just sit there and be quiet. People, you being silent doesn't help. It only hurts, because if you're not standing up and saying something and standing against it, then that's one less voice. That's one less voice to have on our side, and that's not something that you can allow to happen. A lot of people say that you don't intertwine politics and sports. This isn't fucking politics. This is morality. This is human life. that we're fighting to demand respect for. To try to just simplify it as politics is beyond a slap in the face, you know. And to that point, politics have always been intertwined with sports, whether people want to like to admit it or not. You know, I know, especially over in Europe, politics and sports are like.
Don't we want to speak about that in Scotland? Honestly, I mean, you came to the hotbed for politics and sport, I think, with our two teams. But I think as well on the back of all this, I think it's weird that the Globe not forgotten about it, but definitely put to the back of our minds that of the worst health pandemic since 1980. I just find that obviously that's all we've heard for 2 months. We're still in the middle of it. They're still here in the UK. We're still in a partial lockdown, and yeah, we're meant to be staying away from all these people. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people are all in Glasgow alone. And that's miles away from where you are all getting out in close quarters with each other to protest against this stuff.
I think it just shows you as well just how much opinions changed. I mean, you look back to Ferguson. Out with Ferguson, there wasn't huge protests anywhere. Now we're a little bit down the line, and as you said, in the middle of a global pandemic, there are people out in cities across the planet. It's not just isolated to Chicago or Minneapolis or New York or Los Angeles. It's all of them, and it's Atlanta, and it's Orlando, and it's Miami, and it's Tampa, and it's everywhere. Which I think it shows just how much that there's people have had enough of it. And I mean, from your perspective, Phil, do you think that we're at a point now where something might actually change through all this?
Strangely enough, I really think it won't happen immediately, but it will happen down the line. You know, that's typically how these things go. Going to Ferguson and just thinking about that, you know, nothing directly changed per se, but they just elected a black woman as the mayor of Ferguson. And so you see how these things have happened. And you see the change, while not immediate, it happens sooner than people thought. And I think what essentially happens is it turns into a call to action, where it's essentially like, look, this has happened. It's time we take it into our own hands and make the change and be the change that we need to be. And that's been a common theme that I think has been starting to happen more and more. And it's good to know that, you know, people are going to push that this doesn't end with the protest ending. Like, that's the one thing that people have to keep in mind. This doesn't end once the protest stops. The fight has to continue on. The fight will continue on. You know, we cannot let their deaths be in vain. We won't let their deaths be in vain.
I think one thing for me is it's going to be interesting to see how many of the black boxes from Tuesday actually turn into some sort of action from the person that posted it. Because I think there was something going around. There's so many million posted. I think it was maybe 19 million, give or take.
Yeah.
And then it was 30 million signed the George Floyd petition. I think we need a lot more doing instead of saying, as we've already did. But it's definitely been, it really has been quite eye-opening. I mean, how will we look back on this in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, you know what I mean?
Hopefully a turning point. I mean, one thing I would really like to know as well, Phil, was the Nickelodeon 8 minutes 47 advert that I Can't Breathe. To me, to see, especially someone like Nickelodeon, where it's young teenagers. So I believe it was Teen Nick it was that showed it, and kind of a lot of other Viacom. It may have just been straight up, Nick. I'm not sure. I've just
It was straight up Nickelodeon.
Hell, I mean, that to me, that just shows kind of how much that this conversation's actually opening up to beyond kind of the small group out with black people who have an interest, if that's the right words. It's forcing people to have that conversation now.
Yeah, it's forcing people to have to confront the reality. You know, a lot of times you would never have thought Nickelodeon would have done that. You wouldn't have thought they would have tried to say something because, you know, it's a kids network, you know, and we all say protect the kids, you know, we don't want to expose kids, but we have to. We have to be real with the kids. You have to have those conversations. You have to address the truth of the matter. Because if you don't, you just create a new generation of those who are not uh, of knowledge of how these things go. You just create the potential for a repeat.
Yeah,
You create that.
yeah, that's the thing for me. It can't just be we have all these protests and stuff, and then away again, and sort of it's always in the public eye, but not quite as much as this has been. It needs to continue, and I think for me as well, it's just a wee bit weird. As let's say, like during the sort of when all the COVID-19 stuff started, you start to think, when is this going to end? Feel like I've been living it for years. Sort of get that same feeling with like these riots and stuff. Like you've been glued to the telly all the time on the news. You're seeing them 24/7. It's like when does like American civilization stuff? Because I think we had like the London riots. I'm a wee bit too young to remember the ins and outs of it, but like it's similar. It's probably worse, to be fair.
It was a similar spark, actually. The London riots was a fellow by the name of Mark Duggan, I believe, who was shot because all this about British police not being armed. Yeah, they shot him, who was allegedly carrying a gun, and then it all kicked off, and it was 3 or 4 nights of it. And it was crazy. And for me, that was the first real race riots I can ever remember in Britain. There was a few in Bradford, if I remember right, in the late 90s, which were, I believe it was Pakistani and Indians. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure it was Asian communities that had some detention with whites. Shot a core of whites at the middle of it again. But I mean, I know we've took a fair bit of your time up here as well, Phil. So the one last real thing I want to ask you is, is there anything that you want to say to whoever might watch this and listen to this? And the floor is yours.
I just want people to take a step back and just understand that there's a lot more to the riots than the media are going to portray. You know, you see all the property damage and that's all you see, but you have to understand the story behind what is going on. And I think that that's the key, and it goes back to the point of education. When you learn about everything that has gone on, when you learned about the struggles that African Americans have gone through, when you learn about that, you'll have a better sense of understanding about why things have taken the turn that they've taken. Uh, and I would say it's not just even in Black America for African Americans. Just I would even argue Black people, Black groups in Europe and in Asia, the treatment of Africans, and especially in China, has been abhorrent. Uh, you know, for me personally, one of the things I want to be able to do is learn more about Black communities outside of the U.S. because there are a lot more than just African Americans. Uh, they're just more than just American history of African. There are a lot more to do research on. There's been a lot more egregious acts towards Blacks across the world, and I think the more I'm educated, on that, the better sense I'll have going forward of not only how we're impacted here at home, but how the Black community is impacted internationally. But in terms of this, please do your due diligence. That's all I say. Understand that your silence, it helps no one. It only hurts. And at the end of the day, if you do know someone, you know, I don't know how to phrase this, but understand that sometimes you got to say something more than just, I'm sorry that this is happening. Sorry only goes so far. Sorry only does so much. You have to say more, you have to do more. And that's where we are right now in terms of just what's happening here, and what I want to be able to say in terms of what's been going on. I want to thank you both for having me on. It means a lot that you reached out to me, James. I'm sorry I'm not more. Go ahead.
I'm more than happy to have given you a platform just to tell your story. And if even one person watches this and goes, shit, there's a hella good argument there, then it's hopefully done what we've intended from it.
I think conversations like this are sort of needed just generally, and if our platform's only we just now, and whether it's our wee platform or whether it's CNN, whether it's your favourite celebrity or band, we've all got a duty as a society to sort of spread these messages of this isn't right and we're not going to stand for it anymore. And hopefully, whilst we're not going to eradicate it, perhaps it won't be gone in our lifetime, perhaps it won't be next, but it's small steps to hopefully a brighter future. And that's all you can sort of hope for, I suppose. But anything else?
I'm good there.
Right. Well, Phil, thanks very much for joining us today. Hope you have found this conversation insightful. We'll leave links and stuff to.
Do you want to plug anything before we go, Phil?
Yep.
We'll put up links for all the petitions and what have you. So we'll stick up one for Black Fires.
If you any plugs for the bail bonds?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can say at this point. I mean,
we'll get those up.
Yeah, that's about it. Outside of that, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
It's been an absolute privilege, my friend.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you all for listening. Take care.